I'm probably the most politically unaware person in this room. My husband will point that out very clearly. I'm also historically ignorant. And I was very surprised why you invited me to come and speak as if I'm some authority on matters of the law or politics or sedition. Despite my ignorance, you have invited me, so if what I have to say annoys you or appalls you, then you deserve it because you invited me. I don't understand, well, I didn't until I was 11. I didn't understand what was so bad about sedition. In fact, I can go on to ask you, jus primae noctis, why is that a bad thing? Dictatorship, why is it a bad thing? Someone must answer me these questions because I am a child in many, many ways. Inciting hatred, why is that a bad thing? Stopping the inciting of hatred, why is that a bad thing? Why is Namuwi's video a bad thing, and why is the government trying to clamp down on it a bad thing? I can bandy around, and anyone can bandy around opinions on what is good and bad, but nobody, I wish somebody would, tell me why it's a bad thing. But even though I may be, most of the time, while I was studying politics and psychology and sociology and philosophy, I was in disagreement with many things. I based my opinions on something absolutely personal, unwritable into a tome, can be written on a piece of paper, and perhaps will last for about 2 paragraphs. So concise that even the Sun was so afraid to publish it. When I was 11 years old, it was May 15th, 1969. Not May 13th, but May 15th. My mother's best friend, Mrs. Tan, had braved the curfew, and she was at the door, and I heard loud sobbings. The police were about, and she ran the risk of being arrested or worse, shot at for crossing the curfew. But she was at the door, as she would be usually before the curfew, and she and my mother were crying their eyes out. I didn't really understand why. So I asked my dad, who was trimming his nostril hair, and he said, because they're friends and they love each other. And so, is that a reason to cry? And he said, because outside, they're not friends, they don't love each other, and they're killing each other. So there it was for me. That sealed it for me. I became this shallow person ever since then. It's that simple for me anyway. It's like, here it is, friendship and love and compassion and mercy. And that's a good thing, because it felt good. And outside the gates of the college where my mother was lecturing, there was murder and anger and no compassion. And that was a bad thing. And that's how I've measured everything in my life. I think in every person's life, we come to 100 crossroads every day. And the choice is between these two only. The choice is between showing compassion and mercy and love, or showing hatred, no compassion and no mercy. I now have before me the case of Namuwi. Namuwi, what his name is. He was inciting hatred, not just in his song, which is Negarakuku. He showed Malay girls in tudungs walking about, and then a lump of shit. I think he was inciting hatred. And then I was told about Kawanku by my actor Jason. He said Kawanku said Malays were monkeys and had to go back into the jungle. Sounds very familiar. I thought my father said some people said it in 1969. They're now opposition party fighting for fairness. And I'm thinking he's like inciting hate. There's no compassion there. My people are monkeys and should go back to the jungle. Is there compassion there? Is there mercy? Is there love? No. And I despise this. Not despise, it makes me sad, equally when I heard that someone in power waved a weapon of murder at an entire crowd and said this is going to be washed with the blood of a particular type of people. Was there mercy, love, or compassion in there? No. That was the road he took, that was the choice he took. He went for no compassion, no mercy, and certainly no love. And I was saddened by that. I am saddened by that. I'm saddened by Namuwi, and I dislike, rather intensely, because I just spoke out against hate. I can't say hate anymore. I dislike very intensely Negarakuku the video, Kawanku the video, as much as I despise the waving of the kriss. And I don't know what to do about it. And for the longest of time, I was the most optimistic person I knew. I was getting laughed at left, right, and center. People in the advertising industry would say, why do you keep on making these sentimental commercials? Why don't you make some clever ones as well? As this romantic, sentimental person, I can tell you something. I was getting, as soon as I heard about the waving of the kriss, my optimism was at an all-time low. When I turned on Negarakuku on the video, my optimism sank even lower. And when someone told me who could read Chinese, that when they went to his weblog or website, that the Chinese were saying, oh, the Malays are this, that, and the other, and the Malays were saying because you eat pigs and you burn paper at your funeral, and then he was saying we are monkeys. I'm going, to hell with them. This is older diaspora Chinese, i.e. the Malays, fighting against later diaspora Chinese, against the present Chinese, for a piece of land which belonged to neither of them, so to hell with them. What do I care? I've never voted in my life, and definitely now I'll never vote again. I don't even vote.
In Wei Mingqi's position, that you have so much of angst that you want to release, how would you convey that? You know, being critical, but in your graceful way. Thank you.
Certainly not by writing a song like Kawanku, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Certainly. You may find it acceptable. I'm not saying put him in jail. Don't put him in jail, for heaven's sake. I was asked by some members of the authority what I thought they should do, and I said, right now, by demonizing him, he's become a very big person, and you're a very small government. I said, you should have asked me beforehand. I would have asked you to go into the papers and the news and say, we've seen this video, we find it very distasteful and rather racist and incitement of anger, but we're not going to do anything. So he becomes a small singer, and you're a big government. But they asked me too late. My opinion, if I was in his shoes, I would say I brought that shit for myself. Look, it's ridiculous. I don't think that UMNO is getting angry anymore, are they? I thought they sort of laid off him, and I thought Gerakan was angry with him now. Sentimental. Nabokov says that he who dismisses the sentimental doesn't understand what sentiments are. Fairness, good, justice. These are sentiments. Protecting the weaker. These are sentiments. Not just I love you. And do you want to go to the back room? Those are sentiments too, but these bigger issues are all based on human sentiments. And I think that if you fear compassion and mercy, and dare I say it loud, this is a very sick society. Mercy, I think, which is in Bismillah, means if you're a big person, you protect someone who's weaker than you. And what's so sentimental about that? Compassion means if someone is in need of help, you hold out a helping hand. What's so negative about that? What's so shameful and frightening